Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Ladies and gentlemen, having sampled and tasted the best there is to offer from the debating cuisine, this nation of Kenya, we bring you the Great Debaters Contest, the Nationals.
And the savants of debate starting us off are from Nairobi and Eastern regions, Ofafa Jericho High School and Mbooni girls. Their motion, lack of food security is the greatest threat facing Africa today.
I am Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
I'm a hungry person today. Don't get me wrong, I didn't say angry, I said I'm hungry. Not hungry in terms of eating. I'm hungry to educate you on this motion. I am Salima Nano Haga from Mbooni Girls, here to strongly propose the motion that states lack of food security is the greatest threat facing Africa today. Lack of food security refers to food insecurity, which is a condition that occurs when there is lack of access to safe and nutritious food. I said occurs when there is lack of access to safe and nutritious food, preventing people from living healthy and active lives. Food security is built on 3 pillars. 1, we have food availability, which is sufficient quantities of food available on consistent basis. We have food access. That's the second point. The second pillar, having sufficient resources to obtain appropriate foods for a nutritious diet. 3, we have food use, appropriate use based on knowledge of basic nutrition and cares, as well as adequate water and sanitation. Currently today, Africa lacks food availability, access, and food stability to sustain its vast population, which is the greatest challenge. Factors that show that there is lack of security today. We have the global water crisis. Water table reserves are falling in many countries due to widespread overpumping and irrigation causing food shortage. Moreover, climate change, the rising global temperatures are beginning to have a ripple effect on crop yields, forest resources, water supplies, and altering the balance of nature. We have land degradation. Intensive farming leads to a vicious cycle of exhaustion of soil fertility and decline of agricultural yields. To top it all up, we have greedy land deals. We all know the corporations and government are buying rights to millions of access of agricultural land in developing countries to secure their own long-term food supplies. All these factors are present in Africa, hence lead to lack of food security, which I already gave the meaning, right? So we all know that we have seen it through human history in this world, that a hungry world is a dangerous world. If people have nothing to eat, like we have nothing to eat, like you come here and you haven't taken anything, we have nothing to eat, it means only 1 out of the 3 will happen. 1, people will either revolt. 2, people will migrate. 3, people might die. And do you want to tell me that none of this has happened? We therefore, from Mbooni Girls, support this motion that lack of food security is the greatest threat facing Africa today. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening arguments.
Salutations to you all. I'm Trey Gilbert from Ofafa Jericho High School, here to strongly, affirmatively, if not to crusade the motion, lack of food security in Africa is the greatest threat facing Africa today. What is food security? According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, food security refers to a situation when all people in a particular country at all times have access to sufficient, safe food that is required for an active and healthy life. Africa is the second largest continent in the world, which has 54 countries. These 54 countries all face problems, but trust me, food security is not a major threat to all these countries in Africa. But leadership is the main problem in these countries. Theoretically, Africa is the world's richest continent in the world. But yet, despite their vast resources and the bulk African people live as if they were in the deserts, despite being home to millions of skilled laborers and innovators, Africa leadership struggles to stimulate and retain its strongest resources. Leadership is based on what you're supposed to do. But leaders do 9 things wrong and 1 thing right. But they use that 1 thing right to judge their 9 wrongs. Let's take the case here in Kenya. What are the headlines in the news today? Mungoma buying 109,000 wheelbarrow, which they claim to be carcinogenic wheelbarrow. Nyambira County creating a hospital for 7.6 million. And yet, the same hospital has no fence. So I wonder how this hospital is yet to be claimed. In Africa, leadership have the mindset corrupted with big manism, which is the corrupt, autocratic, and totalism leadership, whereby a single leader wants to rule the country for the rest of his life. Take the case of Zimbabwe. Mugabe has been in charge of Zimbabwe from 1989. I bet a few of you were born by then. But to 2015, he's still the president. 24 years down the line, still the Mugabe regime still reigns in Zimbabwe. But the Zimbabweans still claim that Mugabe has done a lot of things for us. He has created roads. He has done everything for us. But critically looking at it, Zimbabwe has a GDP of less than 7%, which is the lowest in the whole of Africa. The ultimate measure of a leader is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at the times of challenge and controversy. That is from one, Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.
We'll hear rebuttals now. Mbooni girls, you have the floor.
My fellow friend Troy, all people at all times are not adequately fed. I'm quoting you. Leadership and food shortage. How does leadership and food shortage affect the daily lives of Africans leading to death? On stage, strongly proposing the motion, lack of food security is the greatest threat facing Africa today. Acute food insecurity is usually triggered by more or less underspread catastrophic events that has large numbers already poor and chronically food insecure people into a situation in which there is little or no food available for them. A study case was carried out around desert communities by the World Health Organization. That is, seed sticks planted are eaten and wild plants remain the only source of food available for plants. In pastoral areas, drought affects herds, and because of collapse in livestock prices, people are confronted with reduced capacity to trade with those selling grant-inflated prices. Poverty. Poverty due to high levels of unemployment has led to a poor purchasing power of food, leading to a lack of food by most people. World Health Organization study case recently shows that worldwide 852 million people are chronically hungry due to extreme poverty. 2 billion people lack food security intermittently due to varying degrees of poverty. constitutes of 69%, I repeat, 69% of this population. Food insecurity is truly Africa's #1 economic setback. Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian political and spiritual leader, once quoted, "These are people in the world so hungry that God cannot appear to them, except in the form of bread. This is present in Africa." If Africa we only had 2 challenges, food shortage and leadership, then Africa will be great. If I would be opposing this motion, I don't think I'd be sticking on leadership alone. There's also other threats, but hey, I'm not the one opposing. Thank you.
Ofafa Jericho, you have 3 minutes.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Matthew chapter 7 from verse 24 to 27, it says, "A strong house is built on a great foundation." Amen. My name is Peter Mtisia from Ofafa Jericho, here to greatly oppose the motion that lack of food security is not the greatest threat in Africa. Let's take Burkina Faso. Oh, Thomas, Isidore, Noel, Sankara. This guy had put in reforms in Burkina Faso that made Burkina Faso a great country. He made a mass vaccination program. 5 million children were vaccinated. He promoted agriculture. The wheat production rose from 1,700 to 3,200. He reforested Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso was at a great point. But when Blaise Compaoré came in, it failed. It went down. And look at Burkina Faso now, 174 to 177. That is where it is in the United Nations Development Program. 45% of the people are living below the poverty line. 9 million need food assistance. Come on. Lack of food security is not the greatest threat facing Africa. Poor leadership is. How come this was not the case when Thomas Sankara was in power? How come? Look at Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe. He took land using the fast track resettlement program and gave it to his friends. He admitted that most of the land is not used. And how can we say that food security, there is no food security and there is land in Zimbabwe that is not used? Fertile land. We cannot sit down and say that lack of food security is the greatest threat. If Robert Mugabe had said that I will take this land and I'll give the people to cultivate and put in crops, Zimbabwe will differ. And the 4 are availability, accessibility, adequacy, and acceptability. And according to Bukan Tijan, the Assistant Director General of FAO, he said that all these are available. But why are people dying? Food security is a threat. But why are people dying? In Turkana, we had people dying. I was so touched. People are dying. But it is not because of lack of food. It is because the leaders that we have put in place do not take the necessary steps required to make our countries better. And we need our countries to be better so that food security in Africa can be greater. I have a dream. I am Martin Luther King of Africa. And I have a dream that one day we will stand up and say, we are not going again like this. We are done with these leaders. Let us change our leaders and there will be food security in Africa. Thank you.
I think I'd say M-Pesa is amazing because I remember when I finally got my M-Pesa activated through my mom and I was like so excited. I withdrew the same day, I deposited the same day. I even lived with M-Pesa on the same day. As in, it was just fun and extremely convenient.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The proposers have been asked to clarify more on what they talked about over pumping and irrigation. And the opposition have been asked if we can blame poor leadership for incidences such as drought in certain parts of the country. We'll have them respond to the questions now. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
I am Jaina Ching from Mbooni Girls. Now, to answer the question from the young lady from Limuru Girls about irrigation and overpumping, the first speaker spoke about factors that show there is lack of food security today. And she talked about global water crisis. That is, the water table reserves are falling in many countries due to widespread overpumping and irrigation causing food shortage. That is, we are having too much water not being channeled properly. Therefore, we are having issues with water supply. Now, my father said, before you raise your voice, improve your argument. Now, I'd like to say a big amen to the Burkina Faso and Zimbabwe and Turkana preaching, let me say so. Now, we cannot channel leadership as the key problem in Africa. Because when you say people are dying in Turkana because of poor leadership roles, I think the food channeling there is the key problem. Because you cannot die because someone is in office. You can only die because something is not being supplied and you cannot have it at the right time to eat it. Exactly. As my fellow speaker quoted here, Mahatma Gandhi said, some people cannot only see God unless through bread. This is happening in Turkana. Now, on normal occasions, I'd start my sentence with surprisingly. But today, I'd rather start with shockingly, because I have shocking statistics for you. According to studies by the World Health Organization, the world has more than 1 billion people who are overweight. And 800 million people, this is a roughly number, were undernourished. Currently, 17,000 children in Africa are dying of hunger and malnutrition diseases every day. What are we talking about leadership? We are losing our future potential leaders. We are not tapping the potential because we are not giving them the chance to live. We are not tapping the right resources and channeling them to the citizens. We instead are propagating propaganda about leadership here and there. We should stop having Citizen News and NTV and TV stations always talking about politics and everything. When will we start talking about challenges that are truly affecting Africa? One of them being food shortage. How many people go hungry per day? Studies by the UN are showing people are living in less than $1. If you know your math very well, less than $1 is roughly 120-something shillings. I am not sure. What can you do with $1? You as an individual. If I take a matatu from town, I can only get to Strathmore and I cannot go back to my home. This is someone who is surviving on that. We cannot propagate that food security is not a key threat in Africa. It is. One of the effects of food security in Africa is that there's both humanitarian and economic standpoint effects. There's shortened lifespan of people and constrained economic growth. Finally, we need to look at this at a wider perspective. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
I will answer a question with a question. Kenyans for Kenya. Where is it now? It's not there. Our leaders are popping champagne, traveling to China, New York, yet people are suffering. Where is it now? You see, what we're trying to drive here is that if we had better leaders, we'd have food. So people in Turkana won't suffer if leaders were good, if leaders were caring. Uhuru Kenyatta, our president, has made 10 more trips in less than 5 years than Mwai Kibaki, who served for 10 years and had made 33 trips. How? People are suffering. Exactly. Why? Leaders. My name is Steve Gerald from Ofafa Jericho High School, and I am here to strongly oppose the motion, lack of food security is the greatest threat facing Africa. It is not. Ladies and gentlemen, according to Food and Agriculture Organization, food and water are in line. You can't divorce the two. So when they talk of overpumping, over irrigation, there is water, meaning there is food. So what is the problem? there is no problem, meaning it is not the greatest threat facing Africa. People, are we together? Exactly. Now, Daily Nation News headlines on July 17th, 2015. It reads, quote, Moi did it with Goldenberg. Kibaki did it with Anglo-Leasing. And now, NYS is shaping up for Uhuru. Some things never change, do they? No. Why? Because the president may come to rule the day. Goldenberg did it for Moi. Anglo-Leasing is doing it for Kibaki. Now, NYS is shaping up for Uhuru's bugbear. Now, when we look at this from a tactical angle, are you with me up to this point? Yes, I'm glad. Now, when you look at this, it is the emblematic of the Jubilee administration's flaws. Megalomania, impunity, corruption of the highest order. Ladies and gentlemen, if we solve this problem, we are solving any problem. Why are people fighting? Why did we have post-election violence? Why? Is it because of food? Did you fight because of food? Were people running away because of food? The late Otieno Kajwang used to say, wherever you go, bomb, 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 bomb. What is the Jubilee administration doing about it? Nothing. In fact, according to Forbes list, Africa 2015, Uhuru Kenyatta is marked number 9 worst leaders in Africa. He's not even finished his term. Where is food? Food is there. Africa is the richest continent. Okay, look at Omar al-Bashir. Took power 1989 through a coup, military coup. And during this time, he siphoned out $9 billion to his accounts in the UK. Now, $9 billion in Sudan, that could have helped them. So ladies and gentlemen, food security is not the greatest threat. We curb our leaders, we curb any problem.
We'll now get closing statements from both teams, beginning with the proposition. You have 1 minute.
Now I am saddened when people live in the deepest pit of ignorance. Because Uhuru Kenyatta, our honorable president, is not the president of Africa. He's the president of Kenya. We want to talk about Africa as a continent and not Kenya as a country. Now, John Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States, quoted, "If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few or who are rich." Now, what am I trying to drive at here? That poverty levels have increased. Lack of food security that is killing many of our untapped potentialities in Africa is real. We cannot sit and blame it on our leaders. We cannot sit and act out of ignorance. When we talk about water shortage, we have seen it. We have seen people lacking water. Michel de Montaigne was a French philosopher, and he said the poverty of goods is easily curable, but poverty of the mind is irreparable. Let's empower our society to end this challenge of food security. Let's impair poverty of the mind. Avoid ignorance.
Opposition, you have a minute as well for your final statement.
You say there is overpumping, now you say there is lack of water. Where do you stand? Now, let me talk of what the Pope said. It is not about the money or infrastructure. The moment we tackle poor leadership, governance, and we will stop begging. Africa is rich. It is rich. There is food. People, there is food. The Arab countries are dry, yet they are food secure. Turkana is dry. Is it food secure? No. And what are our leaders doing? Nothing. Popping champagne, like I said. Leadership should be peer revised. Now, any leader with any hint of corruption, nepotism, and Pan-Africanism, anything that is held to ruin any form of governance that they are given should not even taste the breath of leadership, because they are getting into power for all the wrong reasons. And that is why people are crying. People are crying there is no food. Serikali's idea. No, it is not about what the food security. It is about our leaders. If we do away with bad governance, we solve any problem. Thank you.
To Ofafa Jericho, you point us towards leadership, towards corruption. But for me, the missing link is how then do you connect that to the motion? you know, and so that for me was a missing link. You give very interesting examples of what for you is Africa's greatest threat, and you draw from various examples. I think at some point I kind of feel like the emphasis is so much on Kenya, and yet this was an African, you know, it's supposed to be about Africa, which is all right, but you know, connect it to what the motion is all about.
You guys are confident. You're very confident when you come to the stage. You look good. You come to the stage, you're not intimidated at all. But now we want content. Remember, debate is all about persuasion. When you want to come to the stage, you want to persuade us to believe in you. And for me, all across the teams, I felt Jane took the day for the team in Mbooni, and Peter followed closely by Steve as well, because this was a motion that really needed to engage us. All the best to the two.
Mbooni girls of Ofafa Jericho, let me be candid with you. It wasn't a good debate. To the two teams, we are the nationals, there are expectations. Kindly, whenever you are given a chance to debate, ensure that you match up to the expectations. I don't want to say good, I don't want to say fair. I'll actually say below average. If you're given a chance next year, possibly you should do a better presentation. Thank you.
The results are as follows. Mbooni girls, the judges awarded you 67%. Please give Mbooni a clap. Ofafa Jericho High School, the judges awarded you 70%. Give them a round of applause as well. Yeah, that means Ofafa Jericho takes this debate, but just this one. We'll see what goes on.
Very well, congratulations to Ofafa Jericho. But we must remind you, this is a points game. So you may have the head start, but you may fail to cross the finish line. I'm Austin Yambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.